BBC Radio Cumbria.
The Sports Hour.
Five minutes past 6, Paul Newton and the Sports Hour with you between now and 7 o'clock. Well, it's been a week of change at Brunton Park. Fred Story hands over control of Carlisle United to the Gang of Four. We'll be hearing from new Chief Executive David Allen in the next 55 minutes, as well as the man whose bid to buy the club for a second time proved unsuccessful. John Courtenay will be speaking exclusively to BBC Radio Cumbria within the next few minutes. Plus, we'll be hearing from the former United captain Kevin Gray, who's now joined Workington Reds ranks, and talking rugby league as well with the Whitehaven coach Jed Stokes, who was awarded a new two-year contract at the recreation ground a bit earlier on today. As always, you're welcome to get in touch with us on the programme. Unfortunately, it is a Friday night, so rather predictably, the text machine's gone down again, I'm afraid. But you can get in touch with us by either of two means on the phones, 0845 305 1122. That's 0845 305 1122 on the phones. You can email as well. Any comments, any questions tonight? radiocumbria@bbc.co.uk. Carlisle fans, what do you make of the events of the last 24 hours? Happy with the takeover at Brunton Park, or do you have your concerns? You're welcome to get in touch on the phones, 0845 305 1122, and that email address again, radiocumbria@bbc.co.uk. So, new owners at Brunton Park over the last 24 hours. The Gang of Four, local businessmen David Allen, John Nixon, Andrew Jenkins and Stephen Patterson, who end Fred Story's 4-year ownership of the football club.
Good afternoon and welcome to Brunton Park. Thank you for attending our media conference. My name's David Allen. We're absolutely delighted to announce that the new owners of Carlisle United Football Club are Andrew Jenkins, Stephen Patterson, John Nixon and myself. We've taken over the shares of Fred Story in CUFC Holdings Limited, which owns 93% of Carlisle United. Now, we're very clear in our ambitions and very determined to drive this club forward. The club now has 4 local owners. We're very passionate about taking this club forward and building a sustainable club for the enjoyment of the wider community. We have respect for Fred Story and his remarkable achievements as owner. This club has seen the benefit of strong leadership and direction for 4 years, rising from the conference in the 2004-2005 season to finishing near the top of Division 1 last season. We'll be continuing with that strong business model.
David Allen speaking at yesterday's news conference at Brunton Park. He takes up the roles of Chief Executive and Finance Director. John Nixon remains as Managing Director. Andrew Jenkins retains his near 50-year association with the club. He'll remain as Chairman, while Stephen Patterson becomes the club's Football Director. Well, this is what some of the United fans we spoke to had to say about the change in ownership yesterday.
I'm a season ticket holder. I was a bit shocked today to see it was a local accountant and not Courtenay coming back from Ireland. I had quite a soft spot for John Courtenay. He saved us, when we were in very dire straits. But at least this guy's an accountant, and he can probably keep us on the straight and narrow. I mean, I've supported them for about 50 years now. As long as we don't go wild, I think we've got to make into a reasonable side. But I think the championship's probably our limit.
It's a good thing as long as it goes to the right owner again, and I think Fred Story will sell it to the right man in the end. So, get players in instead of selling them.
Oh, they were doing so well. I thought they were fine the way they were. I thought they did a good job, and I'm not sure. We have to wait and see who's bought it.
I think it's a good thing, good move for the future, because it looked last season they just wanted to stay in that league, and they just give up at the end. And I think next season something new to look forward to. I don't know who the owners are, but I'd like to know. I'd like a few shares in the team, like.
Well, I'm not very happy about it, really. I thought it was doing all right as it was. I thought it was quite successful year for Carlisle United with Fred Story.
Everybody's got different opinions on what way it should go. Probably if it was sold, it would probably be for the better of the club, to be honest. Every big club nowadays has got good management team behind them, and management that come in with a lot of money. And if they can get somebody to come in and just plug a little bit of money into the club, I'm sure they would win the fans back as well. Probably one good player would maybe help as well.
Well, that's the views of some of the United fans we spoke to yesterday. Tim Graham is in the studio with us tonight. Tim runs the unofficial United website, CUFC Online. Tim, good evening. What's been the wider response from supporters to the news of the takeover?
I think quite a few of the fans are a bit disappointed, to be honest. The first thing when anybody talks about a takeover is investment. All the fans want is investment, rightly or wrongly. They want new players in, they want money chucked in. I'm not saying that's right, but that's what fans expect when new owners come in, because generally that's what happens at other clubs, and you can't really see that happening now with the self-titled Gang of Four taking over, to be honest.
Did you or did other people see this coming? Because I mean, it certainly looked as though John Courtenay would be taking over the last couple of weeks anyway.
Well, that's it, isn't it? He was always the front runner in the press. He was always the front runner rumour-wise. You know, he had other daft ones like the Edinburgh Wooler Mill and all the other funny ones you get this time of year when the rumour mill's grinding away. But certainly no one expected the four directors to take over Fred's shares.
What's your own personal view of the last 24 hours?
It's been another rollercoaster of emotion, isn't it? Again, I think it's certainly a bizarre one to me. I was very surprised myself. Like I say, I'm a bit disappointed myself investment-wise. We came so close last season. You can't help but think just that tiny little bit more of investment would push us over the line this season. You know, some new players in, whereas the way we're going, it's looking like it's going the opposite way. Kieran Westwood's gone, Joe Garner could go, Danny Livesey could go. You know, you're wanting new players in with new owners, and we're losing players.
Just a reminder, the text isn't working tonight, but you do have two means by which to get in touch with us with any comments you'd like to share on the programme between now and 7. On the phone, it's 0845 305 1122. That's 0845 305 1122. And the email address is radiocumbria@bbc.co.uk. We'll be joined live by David Allen in the next 15, 20 or so minutes. Of course, as we mentioned a few moments ago, it did appear as though former owner John Courtenay was all set to come back to Brunton Park. John joins us now on the line. John, good evening.
Good evening, Paul.
John, your reaction to the sale yesterday, disappointed?
Yeah, very disappointed. I'd been negotiating with Fred and talking things through over a number of weeks. We were very near resolution as far as I was concerned. I met with him last Thursday. I drove over to Carlisle specifically to meet him. I left him and he said, we agreed I'd print a letter, an offer letter, exactly where I was going with it. My solicitor was on holidays till Sunday. I rang him on Monday morning. I spoke to him Monday evening. I told Fred, that he'd been away and that I would have an answer. I'd have everything in place in a matter of a day or two. On Tuesday morning, I got a note saying if it wasn't resolved by 12 o'clock, he was going elsewhere. And 10 past, I replied to that. I'll explain in a second. But 12:15, I found out that the club had been theoretically sold. Now, I say theoretically for a good reason. Apart from the issue that I haven't spoken to Fred since last Thursday of last week, he hasn't contacted me at all, in spite of the fact that we were talking about doing a deal and then suddenly he changed his mind and went elsewhere. I have had no contact. But on Tuesday morning when he sent me the email saying that I was out of the picture basically, I sent him an email. I sent it to his office. I sent it to Story Construction. I sent it to the club. I sent it to John Nixon for Fred. I sent it to Fred, one of his senior people, Anne Holland. So I sent it to 6 addresses, so he's bound to have gotten it, but I've no reply since. When I say theoretical, I've been with my legal team today, and we've gone through it, and we will certainly be opposing the sale, whatever that needs, an injunction or whatever, because there's unfinished business in relation to the floodplain land.
You're intimating taking legal action there, are you, John, to block the sale of the club?
Yes.
What in effect will that? What form will that take then?
Well, it's more for the legal egos than me. I've been with my solicitor for several hours today, and he's very confident. There's no problem with it. There was an issue whereby Fred agreed that that land was not part of the sale when I sold him the club, and that it would come to me. He then came to me a week or two later and said, it's almost pre-season time. If I put the land in the deal, it's going to slow up the deal and take months. Is it okay if I transfer it later? I said, yes. He then had some issues with the trust. We went to court in London. I sat in the court with Fred. We gave our evidence. Fred swore an affidavit the land was mine, and I still haven't got it. Furthermore, we now have a situation where Dave Allen, now I don't know Dave Allen who you talk of in the club. The only Dave Allen I know is an Irish comedian. But anyway, this guy who's not a comedian, he's an accountant, said yesterday on the radio that the club was £4 million in debt when I was there. A lie. It is not true. The debt when I left the club was around 1.8 million, maybe 100 grand, either way of that. It's now down to 1.5 million, which after 4 successful years is not a great chunk off the debt. He also said that the club was in administration when he went there in 2004. I don't know, if he's an accountant, you would imagine he would understand what administration is. We were out of administration in 2003. It cost me 3.2 million my time at Carlisle. The only difference I have between me and the other 4 lads who are taking over now is I never took 1 penny out of Carlisle United. Not 1 penny. For expenses, for anything. And it cost me 3.2 million. I don't see that being reflected in what little information is available at the moment. That's not being reflected in the same way.
John, in terms of the land deal, which is clearly the issue, you have this disagreement with I guess, Fred Story directly. I think I'm right in saying the shareholders approved the transfer of the land to you, but it was the trust who challenged that, and both you and Fred went to the High Court.
Yes, we went to the court in London and we had it resolved, and he was told he could transfer the land. And he's had further negotiations and issues with the trust, which I'm not really party to, and he has confirmed to me that he can do it. I don't know why he's not doing it. I honestly can't speak for Fred. I don't know why he's not doing it, but he knows the agreement, and we have his affidavit, we have the information. He has said it on the radio, he's been quoted in the papers, he said it on TV that the land was mine, that he agreed that was part of the deal. But here I am 4 years later without the land. Now, had I gone back to the club, it's a different thing. And he said it suited him because he didn't have to get involved with the land. He would do the deal with me, but unfortunately he changed his mind.
How can this be resolved, John?
Well, unless the stance the stance that's been taken by the people involved has changed, it'll be resolved by a court. It's as simple as that. I'm not prepared to walk away. I was actually looking forward to getting back to Carlisle, and I am not prepared to walk away, and I have no intention of allowing the situation to go unresolved. None whatsoever.
John, if the land issue could be resolved, would you have any issue with the sale of the club to the 4 directors?
I wouldn't. I could have a personal issue with it. It means nothing. I mean, if the land issue is resolved, then I have no further control and no further interest. I don't have a situation where I can say, you're not selling that club because I don't like it. I mean, if somebody wants to sell their business, they can sell their business. If the business is holding an asset belonging to somebody else, they've got to release that asset. You can't sell that as part of a business. You can't sell somebody else's asset in conjunction with your business.
How close did you come to an agreement, do you believe, for the football club?
We were very close to agreement. I met Fred last Thursday, and we agreed basically what he wanted. It's basically what Fred wanted, and I agreed. Obviously, everything would have been subject to due diligence because we needed to check out a few things. But, I mean, there was no major blockage in the middle of it. But if you're doing a letter of an offer letter, you've got to be very careful how you tie yourself up legally and what it represents. It's not something that I, as a layperson, could come along and write an offer letter, because I'd end up in trouble with it probably later on down the road. So I needed my legal people to look at it and to word it properly. And Fred himself in the past has been very fond of legal. You know, he's done a lot of, he always uses legal people and says, oh, legal people want me to do this, that or the other, and he insists on having this, that or the other in anything you write down. And yet, when I needed to do that, I got no time to do it. I just didn't get the time.
John, at what stage do you think things started to change? If you look that close to getting a deal and an agreement, at what stage do you think it changed?
Well, I know. The problem is, if you put 4 people in, I mean, I listened to that. I listened to the press conference, and I spoke to, you know, and I know some of the people there. Obviously, I know Andrew, and I know John Nixon quite well, and I know Steve Patterson. I don't really know Dave Allen. I'm not aware that I know him anyway. And, you know, to be truthful, it was a bit Sandy Shaw, wasn't it? It was, you know, puppets on a string thing. It didn't sound very rational or logical, or there were no answers. And then this guy comes on and says the club was in debt for $4 million. No, it wasn't. The club was in administration when I came here. No, it wasn't. So what's he talking about? I mean, this man is a chartered accountant, and he did the accounts for those years, so he knows it's not right. So why, if everything is above board, is he not being honest?
John, you mentioned the Tuesday deadline, which Fred set you. Was that the only deadline you were given?
Yeah, we'd been negotiating. for 6 or 7 weeks. Anyone who's ever been involved in Carlisle United knows how complicated 6 or 7 weeks of Carlisle can be. And things change. But, no, there was no major panic. Only Fred was anxious to get out of there. And I said to him, look, another couple of weeks doesn't make a lot of difference. And he agreed that with me about 2 weeks ago. There were some delays, and I have to admit on my part, but nothing that caused any major thing. And neither did I know. I have since found out, because there were 4 people apart from Fred involved in it. And people have families and they have friends and they have people and they do talk. And I know that the deal, I've been told from people who I would trust, I've been told that the deal was agreed before the weekend. And Fred had a lot of advertising to do last weekend with his eco houses and such, and he didn't want it in the papers. They knew on Friday, and I was talking to Fred on Thursday, and they knew on Friday that they had a deal. And I was left thinking, that I've got to get a deadline letter out as quickly as I can. And then he comes back and says, Tuesday, 12 o'clock, or else too late. This was on Tuesday morning I got that.
Hi, John. Tim here. You mentioned that when you sold the club to Fred Story, the club was £1.8 million in debt. Can you just clarify, that it was £1.8 million in debt, and what parties... that £1.8 million.
We owed just over £1 million to Bristol and West on the loan that Michael Knighton had. And the incident with that loan, the way that loan panned out was, I tried to borrow the money in the UK at a proper lending rate, but they wouldn't accept my assets because my assets are based in Ireland, and that's a fact. And they wouldn't accept the club as an asset, so therefore I couldn't use the club. And there was an agreement in the boardroom that money would be loaned to the club by one of the directors, and we let go. The one bank that was interested in talking to us, we let that pass, and then the director changed his mind later on down the line. There's no point in me telling you that, as most people know who it is, and people will be interested would know, and certainly the directors of the club all know. So ask one of them who it was that promised to loan that £1 million to the club. The balance then would have been VAT and taxes and normal invoices in and out. We would have had money owed to us. I think the total liability was 2.2, but we had about 400,000 which we were due in. Money that we were due in on various things.
So your agreement, basically, when you sold the club to Fred Story, the club was £1.8 million in debt, and you rode the floodplain land, and that was the end of the deal?
That's the end of the deal for £100. I never cashed a cheque, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
£100 didn't really interest me.
John, can you say how much money you were prepared to put into the club had you been successful with your bid?
I put 3.2 in the last time. I'm not saying I would have put 3.2 in, but I would have put money in, and I would have tried to go where I would have been. My idea would be to be ambitious for Carlisle United. I do think it would take a good push for Carlisle to become a stabilised championship team. I think getting to the championship would be a strong possibility. I think stabilising it there would cost money. And I would have been prepared to do that. There wouldn't be any point in taking it on. I didn't want to start a yo-yo situation, so I would have done what I needed to do on that. I'm a bit older than I was the last time I went to Carlisle, not that I was young then, but I learned quite a lot, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I had my own plans in mind. But one of the only, and it wasn't a sticking issue on the deal, Fred was mad, what are you going to do, what are you going to do? And I wasn't all that. If he were to say that I was difficult about that, I possibly agree with him, because I don't feel, if I'm buying a business off you, what I do with the business isn't any of your business once I pay you. So I didn't outline for Fred what I planned to do, but he didn't say, it wasn't a deal breaker or anything like that.
So what now, John? What's the next step for you as far as you're concerned?
Well, my solicitors will be taking legal steps. They're actually starting to do stuff already this evening. I've had a couple of emails from them, and they will be going to court in the UK next week, because there is no way, in my opinion and in my legal advisor's opinion, that the company can be sold while the company has a disputed asset included in that sale. I've actually emailed Fred on, God, where's that Friday and Ted come up? Anyway, I emailed Ted on Tuesday after he said it was sold, and said, fair enough, it's your business, you can sell what you want, but what's the position on my land? And I have not heard from Fred since, by phone, email, text, nothing, full stop. And I just think it's weird. But I think, the idea that they came on and made these allegations, and I heard when I listened to that thing, it said, "Oh, and John, Steve Pat's going to take over. He's going to develop the youth." I put the youth thing in place. After Mr. Knighton had screwed up the whole club, the youth system was falling down around its ears, and I appointed David Wilkes to the youth thing, and it was me who started the youths back up. And it takes 4 or 5 years, and everybody in football knows that, for your youths to start to work, to pay off. And they were starting to pay off just now. There's quite a few kids in there that look like they have a real chance of going somewhere. And then the credit for that is being gone off to somebody else. I don't really understand. And one of the things I'm not too comfortable about is you're getting all this information, and I've heard several of the directors use the word local, or we're all local directors. Are they implying because I wasn't local that I didn't look after the club? I never took 1 penny out of that club, and I invested 3.2 million of my own money. Now, how local do you need to be to do that?
John, just finally, do you think you will ever be back to try and buy the football club again?
That's... who knows that? I mean, I really just don't know whether... I mean, I am definitely interested in the football club. I mean, the stupid thing went and stole a bit of my heart, didn't it? And I got involved, and I'm still involved. I still check every Carlisle result. I still take an interest. I still have many, many friends, as I'm sure you're aware, in Carlisle. But the reality of life is that I came on here this evening, and I was quite, and you know that I was quite agreeable to coming on and speaking to Dave Allen on the phone, and Dave Allen chose not to do a joint interview. He chose not to come head to head, and that on top of him saying that the club was in administration when he was there, and then on top of him saying that the debt was £4 million, would definitely worry me. I mean, what state would the club be in after a while if that's the way it's been run?
Okay, John, look, many thanks for taking the time to join us tonight.
Okay, you're welcome. Mind yourself, Paul.
That's John Courtenay joining us on BBC Radio Cumbria. We will get some reaction to those comments, I'm sure, from David Allen, who will be joining us live in around 10 minutes' time. Remember, you are welcome to get in touch with your comments to what you've heard tonight. John Courtenay revealing on BBC Radio Cumbria that he's set to take legal proceedings to block the sale of Carlisle United. The text isn't working, unfortunately. The phone is 0845 305 1122. That's 0845 305 1122. And you can email as well, radiocumbria@bbc.co.uk. Ned from Shap has been in touch. Ned says, "Never have I been so underwhelmed at a takeover of Carlisle United in my life. 219 employees for a start." Ned says the last man to come in promising promotion was Michael Knighton himself. Do these four even have a business model to achieve this, or is it all takeover bunkum? Says Ned. Do get in touch. That email address again, radiocumbria@bbc.co.uk. Tim Graham is our studio guest tonight. He runs the unofficial supporters website, CUFC Online. Tim, pretty big news. How much of a distraction do you think any proposed legal action could be to the club?
Well, it can't help, can it? I mean, we've been going on for ages now with floodplain land disagreements and disagreements about anything, basically. It's very interesting to hear John mention the 1.8 million figure. I think this is part of the problem for the fans, really. The takeover from those four directors has kind of got swept aside to a degree with the figures that have been bandied around debt-wise. That seems to be the thing people are talking about now. You have John Courtenay saying one thing, you have David Allen, the director, saying another thing as far as the debt is concerned. This is where, as fans of the football club, I think we deserve clarification of what the debt actually is, written down and put either on the official club website or put out to the press. Then it's all out in the open, everyone knows what has happened.
Can you understand John Courtenay's grievances? Can you understand why he's taken this line of action?
I can understand it to a degree. I mean, he's obviously bound to be very disappointed, isn't he? I mean, it's, if you put that much effort into getting a deal for the club and you get that close, he's obviously going to be disappointed, and he feels he's been hard done by morally as much as anything else, I think.
Do you get the impression there is an air of anxiety amongst supporters for whatever reason at the moment, and this is probably not going to help matters?
Certainly, we're going back to the reasons I alluded to earlier regarding the player sales. Like I say, when new owners come in, you expect new players to come in rather than players going out the door. And I think that's what people are concerned about. People expect you to be strengthening. Like I say, for that final push we got so close last season, whereas now we seem to be struggling and getting free transfers in. Your thoughts welcome on the phones. It's 0845 305 1122. You can email BBC Radio Cumbria as well at radiocumbria@bbc.co.uk. Still to come in around 10 minutes' time, we will be hearing from Carlisle United's new chief executive, David Allen.
BBC Radio Cumbria.
For the latest traffic and travel news.
BBC Radio Cumbria.
In Lindale, we've had a lane closure, the A590 Lindale-Brow eastbound between the B5271 and the B5277. They haven't got any names. One lane's closed along that stretch there between the two Lindale turnoffs, and it's all because of a car fire that's affecting traffic. Elsewhere, everything moving fairly well with no major problems on the M6 north or southbound, and that's despite the lane closure each way between junctions 42 and junction 43 for barrier repairs. Anything else, you can always call in if it's safe to do so. It's 0845 305 3939. Warner Merchant, BBC Radio Cumbria. Travel news more tomorrow.
Keeping you on the move
right across the county.
BBC Radio Cumbria.
BBC Radio Cumbria.
Breaking stories. BBC Radio Cumbria Sport. Fred Story is selling.
It's a good thing. It didn't look last season. Just wanted to stay in that league. To just give up at the end.
For sports news as it happens.
Good afternoon and welcome to Brunton Park. My name's David Allen. We're absolutely delighted to announce that the new owners of Carlisle United Football Club are Andrew Jenkins, Stephen Pattison, John Nixon and myself.
Another exclusive.
I was a bit shocked today to see it was not Courtenay coming back from Ireland. At least this guy's an accountant and he'll probably keep us on the straight and narrow.
Your Carlisle United station. BBC Radio Cumbria.
You're listening to BBC Radio Cumbria Sports Hour, just coming up to 28 minutes to 7. If you're just joining us, the breaking news exclusively on BBC Radio Cumbria tonight. John Courtenay, the former Carlisle United owner, revealing he will be taking legal proceedings to block the sale of Carlisle United over a disagreement over a land issue. Your thoughts are welcome on the phones, 0845 305 1122. The email address is radiocumbria@bbc.co.uk. We're hoping to hear from Kevin Gray very shortly. David Allen, the Carlisle United Chief Executive, is coming up in the next 5 or so minutes. Tim Graham, who runs the unofficial Carlisle United supporters website, CFC Online, is also with us in the studio tonight. Tim, we talked about this anxiety felt amongst supporters. What, in your opinion, needs to happen now, do you think, to change the mood?
Well, the last thing we want is any more players going out the door. I mean, it looks likely that Joe Garner's liable to go out the door. But then you want to make sure that's the very last one. You know, there's rumours about Danny Livesey and Hibbs and things like that. And then, you know, the horrible name, Michael Bridges. You know, you don't want... I'm not for 1 second advocating getting Michael Bridges back. What I am advocating is that a good big-name signing will bring people through the door. That happened with Michael Bridges, and that would happen if the directors did that within the next few weeks. I know it's easy to say that, but that's what would happen.
Do you think the criticism the board are getting at the moment, or the 4 board members who've taken over, is fair, given the fact that they were part of a board that oversaw arguably one of the most successful periods in the club's history, 2 promotions, a playoff final last year? I mean, is it fair the supporters are getting on their backs?
I think a lot of people see Fred Story perhaps more as the reason for that success. So with Fred leaving, you're now left with the 4 directors, and perhaps the man at the helm who's steering the ship is now gone. And people are thinking, well, you know, hang on a minute, what's going to happen here with Fred gone? You know, are these 4 able to, you know, horrible phrase, step up to the plate and crack on with it themselves?
How good a job, in your opinion, did Fred Story do? Because obviously what's happened subsequently over the last 24 hours has overshadowed the fact that Fred's no longer in charge of the club. How good a job do you think he did over the 4 years?
Well, he's obviously done a very good job at the club. The ground looks better, the pitch has been done. You know, we've moved up the leagues. The only thing that was a big thing for him was that he'd said he'd got the debt down, which is now, you know, John's disagreeing with that. So that needs clarification on that, so that we can say, yes, well done, Fred, you did a good job on the debt.
How big a job as well do you think John Nixon, Stephen Pattison, Andrew Jenkins and David Allen have now to follow in his footsteps, if you like? There is a raised degree of expectancy around the club, given what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think the mood's flatter before the takeover. You know, people were at least looking forward to the new season, but now after the takeover, the atmosphere is completely flat amongst the fans. You know, we'll have to see what happens in the next few weeks, like I say, with players coming in. Otherwise, to me, the pre-season is going to be as important as the season.
OK, well, the former owner, Fred Story, joins us now on the line. Fred, good evening.
Hello, Paul.
Fred, you've obviously been listening with more than a keen interest to John Courtenay's comments earlier on the show tonight. What's your reaction to what John's had to say?
Well, I'm astounded by what John's saying. I mean, I really don't want to get into a public spat with John because he's a nice fella. His just recollection of the facts just always let him down, unfortunately. I need to address a couple of things that he's said. One is saying that I gave him a deadline last Tuesday. What he forgot to tell everyone is that I've given him 4 deadlines over the last month, all of which he's failed to respond to. The one that he talked about on Tuesday was the last and final of a series. So he's been a little bit insincere when he's conveying that. I was offering to sell the club to John for £100 in a much better condition than John sold it to me, and he still didn't take that offer. So I think John needs to be a bit more honest about what he's saying. On the debt, we have reduced the debt in the club. I think David Allen's coming on later. I'll let David speak about that. And on the land, John knows I have moved heaven and earth to try and transfer that land to John. I have never contended that John shouldn't get the land. That is what I agreed with John when we sold the club. John didn't have a legal representative and he should have got it transferred and left me with a big problem to transfer it to him. The trust have launched a legal attack to stop us transferring the land. If John's got an issue with anyone as far as transferring the land to him, he really does need to speak to trust and his friend Alan Steele, because I know that they speak regularly on the phone to each other, and you know, perhaps he should be questioning the trust, because everyone knows that I've tried and spent a lot of money trying to transfer that land to John, and I've got no issue with that, and I've got no issue with John, but I am disappointed with him coming and talking, quite honestly, the rubbish that he has talked on your phone in tonight.
Fred, what do you make of what John had to say tonight, revealing he's about to take legal proceedings to block the sale of the club? What is this initially? What is the situation with the club? Has the shares now been transferred to the 4 directors?
Yeah, they have. But you know that comes with the job description of owning Carlisle United. People seem to think that as owner of Carlisle United, they can go and take legal action against you, and you know they sound so big and tough when they say these things. Well, you know, the trust has tried that, Brooks Malson has tried that, and the fact is, everything we've done has been absolutely correct and above board, and that is why I've seen those 2 characters off. And if John's going to be silly enough to do that, he'll find that, you know, I have done everything absolutely properly, and John really does need to get his facts right.
Hi, Fred. John was pretty much adamant there that the deal when he sold the club to you was that the club was £1.8 million in debt, and that he will get the floodplain land off you. What's your opinion on that? Is that figure correct?
You know, Tim, you and your message board lads, you all get yourselves excited about these things. The truth is, I bet John Courtenay has no idea what the debt was when he sold the club to me. When you talk about debt, speak to David Allen. He's the accountant. Look at the published accounts. You know, you're all getting yourselves excited about these things. There are audited legal accounts. If you want to look at the debt, have a look in there. What I can tell you is that when I bought the club, I put $2.15 million into the club to cover outstanding bills, to pay for players whose contracts were a joke, quite frankly, and the best thing to do was to pay them up and get fresh players in. And let me remind you, Tim, that is why we've been successful at this football club. You know, everyone seems to run around, you know, the owner of the football club and the 4 directors who have become owners now are, you know, getting the target of all these people who can tell them what they should and shouldn't do. The reality is those people who have taken over the club are local people with a lot to lose, and people seem to take advantage of that, which I think is pretty sad. The reality is they care deeply for the club. They want the club to succeed. If people are true Carlisle United supporters, they should stop getting their knickers in a twist and they should start supporting the club.
I agree that some people need to stop getting a little bit overexcited by it all. I was just wondering what your take was on John being adamant that it was 1.8 and the floodplain land, that was all.
Yeah, look, Tim, I know what you say, and, you know, I'll leave that to David Allen because, you know, they do the accounts. I don't question the accounts, and I know that they'll be right. As I say, when I know that I put £2.15 million into the club. I've never charged any interest for that money. And quite honestly, that has meant that the club could stop chasing its tail. You know, when I bought the football club, before the shares were transferred, the first thing I had to tell everybody who worked at the football club that there was no money to pay their wages, and those lads couldn't go on holiday because of that. And, you know, John is a nice fella, but, you know, let's not get carried away here. John left that club without being in the club. People who worked for him, and he owned the club, didn't have the money to go on the holidays. So, you know, let's get it in context exactly where the club was when John left it. John did a fantastic job. He lost a lot of money in the club. Whether he was naive, he was misadvised or whatever. You know, but John is not a dishonest man. He's a really nice fella. But sometimes he gets carried away with the facts, and he really needs to think before he talks.
Fred, are you able to say why you chose the 4 directors over and above John Courtenay's bid for the club?
That would be me going into what John Courtenay's just done before. All I'm doing here is I didn't want to come and have a public spat with John because I do like the fella. You know, I'm not going to say why I didn't choose John Courtenay or why I didn't choose anybody else. That's irrelevant. At the end of the day, I've chosen to sell it to the 4 directors for one reason only, because I believe they are the best people to look after Carlisle United. And that is and still is my primary interest.
And Fred, at this stage, I know you haven't had a great deal of time to reflect on what John said in terms of the threatened legal action. Would you consider speaking to John to try and resolve the situation rather than allowing this to go down the legal route?
Well, you know, John says that he hasn't had a phone call returned. John's pretty good at not returning calls himself, so, you know, it's a little bit of pot and kettle there. But, I mean, of course, you know, the club is still involved in a legal wrangle with the trust because the club is trying to see the land transferred to John Courtenay. So I'm just absolutely astounded that John has came out attacking me and the club for not getting the land. We've spent a lot of money, as John well knows, trying to transfer that land to John Courtenay. He really needs to speak to that fella who keeps ringing him up, and he keeps ringing back. That's a fella called Alan Steele. You know, Alan Steele and his other compatriots on the trust, they're the people who are stopping the land being transferred to John Courtenay. And anyone who attended that AGM last year at the shareholders meeting will verify that. The press were invited. You know, it's all there on the public record. People can stop getting excited and making things up. The facts are there for them to look at.
Fred, I was going to suggest having sold the club, it would have lifted a weight off your shoulders. I'm not so sure by what's happened over the last 24 hours.
Well, it has, because it's a difficult thing on a football club. But, you know, I'm not... Well, I shouldn't be surprised, should I really?
Fred, it's been good to speak to you tonight. Many thanks. Paul. Thank you. That's Carlisle United's former owner, Fred Story, joining us on BBC Radio Cumbria. Keep your comments coming in on the phones 0845 305 1122, and on the email it's radiocumbria@bbc.co.uk. Just a reminder, our text machine not working tonight, so it will either have to be by phone or by email. We'll be speaking to Carlisle United's Chief Executive David Allen in just a few moments' time. Some of the reaction coming in tonight. Mark from Carlisle says he thinks he speaks for a lot of fans when he says he's disappointed that John Courtenay isn't taking over at the club. Mark thinks that the new owners are nice guys, but the club might now be resigned to mediocrity. Alice is a Workington fan, also a Carlisle fan as well. Alistair says that just because there are free transfers doesn't mean they're bad players. Look at Hallwood. They all get looked at by the coaching staff. That's in reference, I guess, to the arrivals of Josh Gowling and Ben Williams into Brunton Park. Tim Graham runs the unofficial Carlisle United website, CFC Online. He's our studio guest tonight. Tim, on the subject of crowds at Brunton Park, listening to some of the views of the fans there, the crowds were down last season. Why do you think that was the case?
The credit crunch has a lot to take into account for it, doesn't it, I think? But then, to me, the marketing of, you know, ticket offers and things like that has never been the best at Brunton Park. I mean, it seems to be kids for £1 and family tickets, and that's your lot. And, you know, to be fair, not all of us are families. You know, they need to do more ticket-wise to get more different people in, not just families or kids.
Well, the club's Chief Executive, David Allen, joins us now on the line. David, good evening.
Hiya, Paul.
David, firstly, your reaction to the news tonight that John Courtenay looks as though he's about to take legal action to block the sale of the club.
Well, I was listening there to John Courtenay, and I've also been listening there to Fred Story. Fred Story certainly seemed to have addressed most of the issues quite well. Obviously, John Courtenay seems very, very disappointed. Naturally, he's disappointed. You know, he says he wants to buy the club, and obviously hasn't got it. So he just sounds very, very disappointed. I'd be very disappointed if he took legal action, because obviously that's just hindering what we want to get on and do. You know, we'll have to just sit back and see what comes.
John also questioned tonight the accuracy, David, of some of the figures mentioned in yesterday's news conference, specifically the £4 million debt.
I think probably my figures will be better than John's. In June 2004, the club owed the Bristol and West mortgage £1.1 million. It owed John Courtenay's own company, Top Lion Sportswear Limited, £980,000. It owed its creditors for ongoing bills for running the club £242,000. It owed the VAT £103,000. It owed PAYE and national insurance on wages £411,000, and it owed corporation tax on top of that, which takes us to £3 million. In addition to that, there was hire purchase agreements on cars. There was loans due to directors for money that they had put in to pay the bills. There was loans due to people like the brewery that were subsidising the club. All that adds up to just under £4 million. Now, quite rightly, what John did say, and he is right, it cost John apparently £3.2 million to run the club. What he did do was, when he left, he wrote off just over £1 million, which then brought that debt down to just under £3 million.
And can you clarify tonight as where the debt currently stands?
Yeah, the debt's down now to under £2 million. What I can tell you is, in the 2 years before Fred Story took over this club, it was losing £1.1 million a year, and that can be seen by the accounts that are filed at Companies House. Now, when you're losing £1.1 million in each of 2 years, you know, you've got to be running up debt. I mean, Fred sorted all that out. The club's running quite satisfactorily now, and it's paid off quite a bit of debt, as well as improving the infrastructure.
So how's the debt going now? You know, you say we owed around the £3 million mark about 4 years ago. You know, how's that come off in chunks? Are we kind of running out of steam now, or is it kind of being paid off at the same amount every year?
Well, it's all settled down now. It's ticking along quite nicely. The money that's owed now is a few creditors for ongoing bills that are getting paid every month. There's some loans in there from directors and a £1.5 million loan from Stories. I mean, Fred said there that loan to Stories and the loans from the directors are interest-free, and you know, there's no immediate plans to repay any of that.
David, William is a Carlisle fan who's got in touch with us tonight. He says there needs to be a degree of honesty from David Allen and the rest of the directors. Why has the debt not changed when we've sold all these players? And also asks, will they be investing in the club or taking any money themselves?
They're good questions from William. The debt won't be coming down when we're selling players, because our intentions are that if we're forced to sell a player, any money that comes in will be reinvested in the team, and I think that's the best thing to do with that money. Certainly, I won't be taking any money out. There's a lot of speculation that when owners sell players, they take the money out for themselves, but I assure you that isn't the case.
David, you talked yesterday at the news conference about a sound business model. What exactly do you mean by that?
What I mean is that when Fred Story asked me to come down to the club to get involved on the financial side in the summer of 2004, the club was losing £1.1 million a year. You know, we've stopped that. The club sunk into the conference. We brought it back from the conference. You know, it had a fantastic season last year, finishing the top of Division 1 and covering its bills. That's what I mean by that.
But would you say it's a policy based on, which I guess is a common practice, of signing young players like Joe Garner and selling them on for a profit?
That was never the intention. People like Joe, he was there on the market at the right time. He was identified by the staff as a real talented lad. They went out, they secured him, they brought him to Carlisle United. I mean, he's an absolute superstar. He's an exciting player to watch. unfortunately he's got injured, the club wouldn't have any intentions to sell him. We might get forced into that, but, it's no secret we've been approached by Notts Forest, but there's nothing firm on the table yet.
There is a degree of anxiety, understandably, I guess, amongst supporters who've seen Kieran Westwood leave and then the speculation surrounding Joe and more recently Danny Livesey. Are you able to give any assurances to supporters that the club isn't trying to sell off its prize assets?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not aware at all of any approaches for Danny Livesey. It's certainly not our intention to sell him at all. As for Nichols, the same goes for him. Kieran went, a fantastically talented lad. We're taking the credit for bringing him on. It's the coaching staff and the team that's brought him on. He's done fantastically well at Carlisle United. I mean, we don't want to steal anything from Kieran. He is very talented, but at the same time, he's done it at Carlisle United. He has aspirations to play in the Premiership. Good luck to him. I mean, we'd like a goalkeeper to be playing like that at Carlisle, but when you've got aspirations to play in the Premiership, you just can't hold a good man back.
David, can you say how much of a transfer fund you intend to give John Ward?
We don't intend to give him it. He's already got it. John's happy with what he's got. It's all in place. I don't want to quote exact figures. We'll have people from all over the country wanting a share of it. We want to leave it to John Ward to do what's right.
Crowds were down last season, despite the club's best finish in terms of league position for something like 20 years. What can you do as a club to change that, to alter that trend?
The gates are down all over. It's not just Carlisle United. There's some fantastic coverage on Sky TV and on the telly. People talk about the credit crunch and that. There's a lot of pressures on people. All I would suggest to people is, I was there when we won Leeds 3-1 this season, and it was absolutely magical. Come and join in the atmosphere, enjoy the club. We want to build it for the benefit of the wider community. Just come on and fill your boots and enjoy it like we're going to. We've got one or two things on the go to try and encourage people down, encourage kids, and also, promote the club a bit more. Please come and enjoy it and just get stuck in.
Paul just mentioned there, David, about crowds coming down. We're talking about marketing. The one thing that, to me, sometimes leaves something to be desired at Carlisle United is the marketing, around the city and ticket office and this and that and the other. You mentioned kids again there, and I mentioned before that not everyone has kids and not everyone benefits from a family ticket. So, what kind of ideas are the club looking at to get, single adults and those kind of things through the gates?
Right, well, we'll take on board that criticism. We're not perfect. We're striving to do everything better. If people have got ideas, come and tell us. We're already speaking to one or two people in the town about a different ticket outlet up in the town to help working people get the tickets through the week. We'll try and improve our marketing. We will.
David, just finally, for whatever reason, there does seem to be a degree of despondency among supporters. I think it's probably a hangover from the playoff defeat at the end of last season. Would you agree that the supporters need to be given a lift in the next few weeks, and that might be perhaps by signing a player that will make people believe you and the club really do mean business?
Just bear with us. Obviously, there'll be one or two people concerned, quite rightly. I remember the concern when Fred Story bought the club, and, look what Fred's done. Just bear with us, watch what we do. We want to do it right for the benefit of everybody.
Well, I'm sure everyone connected with the club wishes you and the rest of the new owners a successful time at Brunton Park. David, many thanks for joining us tonight. That's Carlisle United's new Chief Executive, David Allen, joining us on the Sports Hour. Andrew says he thinks Carlisle supporters can be a fickle bunch who are never happy. He says the club is in a good state with solid new owners. Andrew says, what's to complain about? Let's just stay on a Carlisle United theme of sorts. Workington Reds, of course, completed one of their biggest signings in recent years last week. They captured the former Carlisle United captain, Kevin Gray, following his release by Chesterfield. And Kevin is on the line now. Kev, good evening.
Hello there.
You've been training this week with your new team for the first time. How did it go?
Yeah, it went well, yeah. It was good. Quite enjoyed it. Good bunch of lads. Obviously, I know Darren from the days at Huddersfield and what have you. But no, it seemed a decent bunch of lads.
How did the move to Workington first come about?
Well, Darren phoned me a while ago, and I spoke to him, about going there and what have you. But it just, well, basically come about 'cause, I wanted to, and it seemed okay.
And of course, you still live up here in Cumbria as well.
I do, yeah.
Just talk us through last season, Kev. You of course left Carlisle in the summer to join Chesterfield. How did it go for you down there?
It was okay, yeah. I got 1 or 2 injuries early on, which kept me out of the team for a little while. But played a few games, and then unfortunately got suspended, which didn't do me any favours at all, really. But they were making big cutbacks down there as well because of one thing and another.
And what about your own personal fitness, Kev? I mean, was that ever a problem?
No, not at all. No, that was okay. No problem with that side of things. So, we'll keep plugging away. You've got to keep yourself fit, as the more your age creeps up on you.
Did you have other offers? Was it a hard decision for you to drop out of league football?
Well, it's always hard to drop out of league football, no matter what age you are. That's just something that you have to come to terms with. But no, it wasn't a difficult decision really at all. I mean, you get to an age where you need to think about the rest of your body really, and getting on with things. So, and as I say, I know Darren, I know what he wants to do and what he's trying to do at the club.
And what will be your ambition during your time at Workington Reds? Have you already sort of discussed with Darren what his ambitions and aims and
not as yet? No. I mean, we've got to sit down and have a good chat between ourselves. So, but I mean, I know he wants to make the club progress. And he'd be trying to do that, and hopefully with bringing 1 or 2 players in and strengthening his squad, then he'll be looking forward.
Will you have any input on the coaching side?
I don't think so. No, I mean Darren and Viv will be doing most of that. I mean, if they need anything to me or any other players, then I'm sure we'll only be too willing to help, but just be going there as a player.
And is that coaching something you would like to do a bit more often later on?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. But I mean, I like to keep playing as long as I can, and keep myself fit for that job.
You of course missed out on captaining the Carlisle Masters side a couple of weeks ago, Kev, which, given the way the results went, probably wasn't such a bad thing.
Well, no. I mean, it wasn't. Unfortunately, I couldn't play in that, but I was really looking forward to it. But I just jarred my knee a little bit, and I thought, well, it's best I don't play, just to rest it.
And still working on the engines?
Yeah. I've been on with that most of today, to be honest. But, while it's fine and working away, we've been quite busy.
Yeah, we were told about 20 minutes ago by a good lady that you were up to your elbows in grease, and I assume she was talking about the engines.
Well, yeah, you never know. Yeah, she was, yeah. It was, we've just been quite busy building something today, so for a job we need to do.
Okay, well, Kev, look, no doubt we'll speak again when the new season gets underway in August. Many thanks for joining us tonight.
No bother at all.
That's Workington Reds new signing, of course, former Carlisle United captain Kevin Gray joining us on BBC Radio Cumbria. Apologies to Whitehaven supporters. We were hoping to hear from Jed Stokes tonight. Unfortunately, given the significance of the breaking news tonight involving Carlisle United, that's kind of overshadowed everything, hasn't it, really? We've run right out of time, but just a quick mention about the fixtures this weekend. Whitehaven, no fixture for them, but congratulations to Jed Stokes on his new 2-year contract awarded today. On Sunday, Barrow Raiders looking to make it 14 out of 14 at Hunslet in National 2, Workington Town. They welcome Oldham, of course. Full commentary or full coverage on both those games in Sport on Sunday from 2 on BBC Radio Cumbria AM. Just finally, Tim Graham, who runs the Carlisle United unofficial supporters website, CUFC Online. Your opinions, your feelings, your comments on what you've heard tonight, in particular this news that John Courtenay broke around about 55 minutes ago, about to take legal proceedings to try and block the sale of Carlisle United.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? We've been going down the line now for years of you said this, you said that, and we're still not near a conclusion of either, the club keeping the land or John taking on the land. I was just looking at the clock there, ticking towards 7 o'clock, and thinking this time next week we'll just be kicking off at Kendal Town for the first pre-season friendly of the season. That's how quickly it comes round. I think the best thing a lot of supporters can do now is support the lads, get behind the team. you know, pre-season starts in earnest next week with the first friendly. Let's have a good push for it this season. That's all we can do.
Tim, it's been good to have you in the studio tonight. Many thanks for joining us. Tim Graham, our studio guest. By the way, if you've missed any of tonight's programme, you can hear it back again if you log on to our website.